Are we really good living together as an interconnected species? Look around. I don't see evidence of that. I see separation. I see hatred. I see divisiveness. I think we've entered a great narcissism as a species, as a humanity, that we are just limitless. There's no stop button. We're on Mars. We're on the moon. And we can't even take care of our children and our elderly. So what are we doing? At the end of the day, self-acceptance is your greatest sword. That is what is going to make you the most desirable to yourself and to others. So being a psychologist, I am fascinated by this amazing mind we have. And it has to be in quotes, because on one hand, it has the potential to create amazing things. But on the other hand, it's pretty diluted too. For example, we can be holding the idea of evolution on one hand and then believe in creation on the other hand. The same mind can do that. Our mind is constantly creating justifications. How can we justify slavery, for example? A good church-going man can, on the other hand, be on top of a ship which has slaves at the bottom. How can we justify cruelty to animals the way we are? And how can we justify destroying the planet? How can we justify the Holocaust? Obviously, the people who did these inimitable evils justified. We're always justifying if you really break down our psychology. So on one hand, the mind is creative, but is it a discerning mind? Is it a wise mind? I highly, highly disagree with anyone who will say we are wise. We're clever and we're really smart people, but are we as a default wise? Wisdom is something that we talk about has to be cultivated. And you and I know how hard it is to cultivate consciousness. Just as we talk about the intellectual quotient, we've got to come up with a consciousness quotient. Well, self-awareness, self-governance, self-reliance, the ability to live in an interconnected fashion where we are not destroying each other and the earth, right? So where our mind defaults is self-preservation, right? We're really good at indulgence, comfort, and self-preservation, but are we really good at living together as an interconnected species? Look around. I don't see evidence of that. I see separation. I see hatred. I see divisiveness. That is also part of the human mind. So we just have to acknowledge that the human mind has potential for great creativity, but it also has this potential for destruction. And when we decontextualize ourselves as being so superior, we enter this delusion of grandeur and we forget that we are wreaking havoc on our earth right now. No one has wreaked so much havoc as the human. And in the last 30 years, if you watch any David Attenborough nature video, he will end with some optimism, but also with a grave warning that we have caused more calamity in the last 30 years than has ever been caused on the planet. So who has caused that? If not the great man, right? So we have to step back and become humble. So when I say we're animal, it's my call to let's be humble. Let's learn from how other animals live. Let's not pretend we are so fancy and superior, because we're really not. And with that humility, now with curiosity, we can learn and grow. But I think we've entered a great narcissism as a species, as a humanity, that we are just limitless. There's no stop button. We're on Mars. We're on the moon. And we can't even take care of our children and our elderly. So what are we doing? So when you boil it down to the micro, you have to understand that this cultural matrix, which is so infinitely complex, is chasing something akin to dominance of the entire globe. Like you said, going to the moon is amazing. To me, it's a thirst for dominance, and then I, as a psychologist, will say, why? Why do we need to dominate the moon? Right? Why are we incessantly dominating? It comes from ego. For me, for you, it could come out of curiosity and exploration. So that's the good side of the ego, which does have that adventure spirit. But I get worried about it because in the micro, right? When we bring it down to the micro, I see this thirst for dominance and superiority. We are now trying to over-dominate our aging process. We're trying to over-control it all. We're coming from this desire of perfection and control. So on a micro level, I see that delusion playing out and increasing disconnection to who we authentically are. Suffering is created because the more craving we have, the more we think we need to have. So for example, with our children, just take it, just a 2-year-old, right? Now, because the 2-year-old down the street is learning 16 languages or going to the Alps on a skiing trip and learning how to ski backwards. And then this one is going to a third world country, so-called third world country, to live in the jungle. And then this one is going for lacrosse. And this one is going for sign language. Now that technology has allowed so much more exposure, it creates an insecurity that we should be doing it all. We can go to the moon. Why not go to the moon? So we don't go to the moon. That creates insecurity. Oh, you've been to the moon and I haven't been to the moon? We have that same philosophy with our children. And it's a rabid delusion of endless craving that doesn't end now. I mean, I see it as a parent everywhere. It's like constant craving, constant insecurity. The fact that we can doesn't mean we necessarily should. And we see that mania on a very personal level. I see it in my office when women come feeling constantly insecure because now the other one has, these huge implants that make her look amazing. So now my ordinary shape doesn't look amazing. Now I'm feeling more insecure. Or that one has lashes that come out like till here and mine are so stunted. Now I'm feeling insecure. Or her kid is studying and going to fancy museums every day and studying with the best artists in the world. And mine, I don't have the money, so mine is only playing with clay. It's become a culture of endless consumerism, and it affects I talk about the woman especially, because she's the one who culture is objectifying, and great and grave insecurities are being caused within her, and a schism between her accepting her authentic self and her essence to this idea of perfectionism, the idea of that woman. I want to produce and curate that child. We have endless imagination, which is the beautiful thing about us, right. But it creates endless craving and endless suffering. If I'm heterosexual and I want the attention of the man, that man is going to look at that woman. So I'm the wife. First, I'm pissed off with the man. You're in big trouble. Then I want to be I want to be the object of desire, 100%. So there is some biological basis for why that man looks at that buxom woman. Right. It's biologically wired in the man to be attracted to that. Signs of fertility, productivity, youth, and health, right? So that's very valuable. However, where we have gotten stuck as women right now is that it's not just beauty for utility. There is a standard of beauty. And in some eras, it's been to look anorexic, to be completely androgynous looking. Today, it's to be all, shapely. The idea of beauty changes with cultural standards. And we, like puppets, keep running after that standard, trying to match it. Of course, the male will be wired in a certain way to be attracted to a certain kind of body, just in terms of the what we talked about, fertility, health, and productivity. But when we women succumb to cultural standards based on what culture imposes on us, and we defy our own natural bodies, and we go and mutate our own natural bodies to become that cultural standard, now we are falling into the patriarchy and actually genuflecting, actually serving the patriarchy by falling prey to it. So women need to own that, a male could be wired to youth and beauty in that productive sense. And we need to be okay with that and not get enraged and hold the man possessive. But we also need to not fall prey to it in our bodies. So we need to accept our aging. We need to accept our saggy bottoms. We need to accept our wrinkles and our cellulite. This is part of our nature, but we want to control our nature. We women have been raised to fit the standard of beauty, which is this ideal of perfectionism. So we are always seeking our worth through our beauty. Most of us are, and it takes honesty to accept it. I hope women can accept that we all want to be desired and be seen as youthful and beautiful. Hence, the cosmetic industry is booming and will always boom, and the plastic surgery industry is filled with female clients. But we don't want to own it, that this is what we covet. So when we are conditioned to want to look pretty and young, now when we see flabby parts of our body, we don't want to accept that this is part of nature. We want to make it beautiful. So if you were a woman and you said to me, hey, I have flabby underarms, I, as your friend, knowing that we are all conditioned, would say, no, you don't. It's so beautiful. Now, by imposing the judgment of beauty, and beauty is a judgment, we actually don't allow the woman to accept, yeah, you're flabby, So we are constantly seeking to make everything fit this paradigm of beautiful. And actually, that makes us more insecure. At the end of the day, self-acceptance is your greatest sword. That is what is going to make you the most desirable to yourself and to others. Do not fall for standards of beauty. It is our wiring to want to be desired, but it is also part of our wisdom to understand that the desire can sometimes be sexual, sometimes it can be emotional, it can be intellectual. And after a certain youthful phase of our life, we can surrender to letting go some of that desire that comes from youth, right? It's natural on some level to be desired. Every woman wants a compliment. The 80-year-old grandmother wants to be told she's beautiful. Men want to be told they're handsome and desirable too. But we, in this modern era, have gone so far to want to cancel our aging. We want to act like we're not growing older. That is a fundamental problem that causes us suffering.